All right, positive energy all the time. Welcome to Vegan Intel. Hope you all doing great. Got an interesting conversation this afternoon, and we're going to be talking about a great man by the name of Michio Kushi. And Michio introduced the idea of macrobiotics to the world, and we're going to talk about that. It's something that I heard but never really paid close attention to it. I did a live interview, well, not live, pre recorded. I did an interview where I recorded my teacher that really helped me go vegan. And he mentioned that he prefers to be called macrobiotic. But I didn't really pay a lot of attention to what he said. So I went to show it to someone, and that part came up, and I said, "Oh, I forgot he said that." And I was like, "Well, what is macrobiotic?" So I went and looked it up, and it's very, very, very interesting. So we're going to get into it. Michio wrote this book entitled The Book of Macrobiotics. I'm going to order it and check it out, but I did do some research on it, and I'm going to share that research with you all. It's very interesting. And so that's just another um, title that is used when we are attempting to eat better. So I find this to be very, very fascinating. So I got to add it to the list of titles as we use often when eating better. So I got to add it with vegan, which comes from the word vegetarian, but they just took the first two letters from vegetarian and the first three letters from vegetarian and the last two letters from vegetarian and made the word vegan. ITAL, ITAL is a term that is used in the Caribbean by Rastas. Rasta considered ITAL natural food straight from the earth, what we would call whole food, which is another description that is used, and plant based. So now we have five instead of four. We have vegan, ITAL, whole food, plant based, and macrobiotic. Macrobiotic. Thanks for joining. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, hit the notification bell. And so Michio Kushi, he was born in 1926, and he came up with this whole concept of macrobiotic eating. And it's very interesting. Michio Kushi, microbiotic educator, natural foods pioneer, and founder and chairman of Kushi Institute, passed away in Boston on December 28th. He was 88 years old. Born in 1926 in Wakayama Prefecture, Kushi graduated from Tokyo University. His studies centered on political science and international relations, especially past and contemporary efforts to create a federation of governments to establish world peace. He came to the United States in 1949, settled in New York, furthered his studies at Columbia University, and met Albert Einstein, Thomas Mann, Upton Sinclair, Peterium Sorokin, and other prominent scientists, authors, and salesmen. To expand his understanding of human behavior across time and history, Kushi also studied and was deeply influenced by Western civilization, Middle Eastern culture, and Indian philosophy and medicine. His father was a professor and Renaissance history, a professor of Renaissance history in Japan. His mother taught at Christian schools, and young Michio had been brought up in a unique East West social and cultural environment. Before coming to America, Kuchi met George Ashawa, Yukikazu Sakarazawa, a prolific Japanese author, health educator, and world traveler. Kushi's interest in Ashawa's teachings complemented each other so well that their newly formed friendship and collaboration would last until Ashawa's passed away in 1966. In the late 1950s, they started to apply the word macrobiotics, a traditional term for the way of health and longevity, to their teachings. Together with his wife, Abilene, Kuchi built on and expanded Oshawa's teachings and the long lineage of dietary philosophers and health reformers around the world. For the past half century, Kushi was vigorously engaged in teaching and learning activities throughout the U.S., Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. Since the mid 1960s, when the Kushi started Irawan Trading Company, the groundbreaking natural food store in Boston, named after Samuel Butler's utopian novel, the organic natural foods revolution has spread around the world. Macrobiotics introduced and popularized organically grown whole foods and naturally processed foods, including brown rice, millet, whole wheat, and other whole cereal grains, azuki beans, chickpeas, and other beans, miso, tofu, shoyu, tempeh, and other traditionally processed soy foods, nori, kumbu, wakame, hajiki, and other mineral-rich sea vegetables, daikon, kale, burdock, kuzu, and other fiber and mineral-rich vegetables, white sea salt, toasted sesame, and other unrefined vegetable oil, boshi, and other seasonings and condiments, amasaki, brown rice syrup, barley malt, and other natural sweeteners, bakcha twig tea, and other healthful foods and beverages. I got to try some of this stuff. In 1978, that's the year I became a vegan. Kushi founded the Kushi Institute in Brookline, Massachusetts. In Brookline, Massachusetts, in order to teach a new generation of students to meet the challenges of modern society. In 1985, Michio and Alvin opened a new campus of the Kushi Institute in the Berkshire Hills of Western Massachusetts. And in 1990, educational activities were consolidated at a 60-acre estate in Beckett. Thousands of people have attended programs at the Institute over the years, and many of them have gone on to become teachers, chefs, counselors, and shiatsu practitioners. Today, there are also Kushi Institutes in Europe with the headquarters in Amsterdam, and in Asia with the headquarters in Japan, and an estimate 500 to 1,000 microbiotic centers around the world. I need to visit one. Many of the holistic practices that the Kushis helped introduce, including shiatsu massage, acupuncture, palm healing, mediation, and visualization, are now widely offered at medical centers, hospitals, nursing homes, prisons, and other institutions. The Kushis went on to found the East West Foundation, the East West Journal, the Kushi Foundation, the One Peaceful World Society, and other organizations to spread macrobiotics worldwide. In the late 1980s, Kushi gave a pioneer seminar on a dietary approach to AIDS to hundreds of doctors in Gabon, West Africa, at a conference sponsored by the World Health Organization. In 1995, he received an award for excellence from the United Nations Society of Writers for One Peaceful World and other books. He was also nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize with recommendation from volunteers from the American Bar Association. In Washington, D.C., he made a presentation on macrobiotics to the White House Commission on Complementary and Alternative Medicine. And the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed a citation in his honor. He is president of the Green Cross Group of Japan. Kushi wrote over 50 books, including the Book of Microbiotics, The Cancer Prevention Diet, Diet for a Strong Heart, the Book of Do-In, Microbiotic Palm Healing, Holistic Health Through Microbiotics, and the Gospel of Peace, Jesus' Teachings of Eternal Truth. He was the father of 5 children, one of whom passed away, and many grandchildren. He lived in Boston, in the Boston area with his wife. He lived a long and fulfilling life and dedicated himself to the realization of one healthy, peaceful world, said Alex Jack, Kushi's Institute General Manager, and Edward Esco, Associate Manager, in a statement. He leaves behind his wife, Midori, Hiyashi, Kushi, 4 sons, Nori, Haru, Faya, and Heisayo, and their families, and thousands of students, individuals, and families he counseled, and friends and associates whose lives he touched over the last 60 years. A memorial service will be held in Boston in late January. So this all happened, and this was what written up when he passed away in 2015. So this is 10 years ago he passed away that this was written up. And he's a very fascinating person. Uh, I knew nothing about it. And like I said, my elder, Peter Elaton, I met him in music college. You know, I got out of high school. I went and worked at a book factory that first year, and that next year I went to music college. So that would be like 1977. And I met him at music college. And he used to always be eating like trail mix and stuff like that. I didn't understand it. Now, working at the book factory, I had printed some books by Dick Gregory. And so as time went on, I ended up growing me some dreadlocks. And one day, me and my girlfriend didn't go to work, and we was riding on the beach, and we got to Bongo Beach in Chicago here where they were playing the drums, and we stopped to look at the drums, and I seen my now elder teacher Peter, and he was there. And to make a long story short, I pointed out somebody with dreadlocks. I said, "How you get his hair like that?" He said, "Mine's is like that." But he used to wear this thing on his head with, this wild head thing. So I didn't never had seen his hair. And I said, "Oh man, I'm gonna grow me some." So that's how I started growing my dreadlocks. And then he became my guru, and I became real close with him. And I started going into veganism and vegetarian and veganism. Right at that time, we thought it was just vegetarian. We didn't know it was veganism. And so many years later, recently, like a couple years ago, I interviewed him. And in the interview, he mentioned macrobiotics, but I didn't pay attention to it because I got like 2 or 3 long interviews from him, and he only spoke on it for a second. But recently, I've showed the video to somebody, and that stood out, and I thought it would be really nice to bring it over here for you all to hear the first time I heard about macrobiotics, but I didn't pay no attention to it. So when I heard it again a couple weeks ago, I said, "What is this?" And then I went and looked into it and found out what it was. But here's the first time I heard it mentioned, but I never paid attention.
Well, most people say, or I tell people I'm a vegetarian because that's what they can relate to. But basically, personally, I call myself a microbiotic, grains, fruits, and vegetables, and there's probably certain nutrients in the air that we deal with. Speaking of that, I remember me and the brother uh, Ramesses and the other brothers like Tamu and all of us, we used to fast. We'll go on maybe a 19-day fast. We'll start it off with, heavier food. Then we go to salads, then we go to fruit. Then the last days we'll deal with mineral water, spring water, whatever. And we'll go to the lake and listen to the music. And we were so high on a natural fast that they'll swear that we was on kind of acid or something. But we wasn't. We was just dealing with a natural food, a natural diet.
Now, I am going to go and interview him again. I'd like to see him again, make sure he's all right. He's probably 80 now. And I'm going to go into that. I'm going to have him go into when did he get into that? Where did he hear about it? We're going to talk in detail about plant-based veganism and everything. And that interview will be over here. And that's going to be really interesting. So when I watched that, I said, "What?" So I went and looked it up and I found out about Michio. And so I did some research on it. Now, it's basically a plant based way of eating that is high in unprocessed carbohydrates and low in fat and processed carbohydrates. A macrobiotic way of eating consists mostly of whole grains and organic vegetables, including fermented vegetables and beans. The foods to eat: brown rice, quinoa, millet, vegetables, especially cruciferous, root and leafy green vegetables, legumes such as beans, lentils, and peas, fruits, especially berries, apples, and pears, nuts and seeds such as almonds, walnuts, and sunflower seeds, sea vegetables such as seaweed and kelp, whole wheat bread and noodles, foods to avoid, refined sugar, white flour, processed meat, dairy products, eggs, alcohol, and caffeine. Benefits may promote weight loss, may improve blood sugar control, may reduce the risk of heart disease and certain types of cancers. So, see, there's things that you should consume and things you not. You want to incorporate these things into your eating plan. Foods to incorporate: whole grains, brown rice, oats, barley, and millet are central to this microbiotic way of eating. Vegetables, a variety of locally grown seasonal vegetables are encouraged. Beans and legumes, these are an important source of protein. Sea vegetables, seaweed and other sea vegetables are included for minerals. Nuts and seeds, these provide healthy fats and can be consumed several times a week. You see, very interesting. Foods to avoid: animal products, meat, poultry, and eggs are generally excluded. Dairy products, all type of dairy, including milk, cheese, butter, and yogurt, are discouraged. Refined food, this includes white rice, white flour, refined sugar, and processed snacks. Processed and artificial foods, any food with artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, or other chemical additives should be avoided. Tropical fruit and juice, fruit from tropical regions such as mangoes, papayas, pineapples are often restricted. Now, I don't understand that part, right? I don't understand, but this is what he was teaching, that you shouldn't be eating tropical fruits. Why? I don't know. I don't agree with that, but that's what he was saying. Certain vegetables, nightshade vegetables like tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, and peppers, and other vegetables such as asparagus, spinach, and zucchini are often limited. So I think you say you can eat them, but limited. Now, this was made up way back in the 60s, right? Stimulants, coffee, alcohol, highly spicy foods are generally not allowed. Sweeteners, refined sugar, molasses, and corn syrup are typically avoided. So you can see there's some discrepancies with the way plant-based vegans eat now and then what he was saying, because he's saying tropical fruits, which we definitely eat a lot, and some of these vegetables like tomatoes are considered to be good for to help with prostate cancer. Eggplant, I had never heard nothing bad about that. Asparagus, I haven't heard anything bad about that. Spinach and zucchini, but it would be interesting to see what Dr. Sabi was saying about these things. He might have agreed, right? So you got to use your own discretion on that. But I just want to show you the whole facts, what he was saying. The microbiotic way of eating discourages or prohibits processed and refined foods, dairy, eggs, most meat, refined sugars, tropical fruits, caffeine, alcohol, and spicy foods. Key restrictions include red and white meat, dairy products like milk, cheese, and yogurt, processed snacks, white bread, and sodas. Nightshade vegetables such as tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants are also limited, as are certain stimulating drinks like coffee and alcohol. The principles: balance yin and yang. Foods are categorized as yin, cooling and calming, and yang, heating and stimulating. The diet aims to consume a balanced ratio of both types of foods. Whole processed foods. The diet focuses on whole grains, vegetables, legumes, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Processed foods such as refined sugar, white flour, and dairy are generally avoided. Seasonal and local foods, eating foods that are in season and grown locally is encouraged. I could see that. Foods that typically steam, boil, or bake, microwaving and frying is discouraged. Mindful eating, the diet promotes paying attention to hunger and satiety and eating mindfully, right? Microbiotic food list. Foods in the microbiotic diet include whole grains. Approximately 50% of the way you eat involves whole grains such as brown rice, oats, barley, wheat, and millet. Vegetables and seaweed. About 25 to 33% of the way you eat consists of vegetables such as broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, kale, and radishes. The category makes up 5 to 10 pulse. Pulse is another one. This category makes up 5 to 10% of the diet and includes foods such as lentils, azuki beans, chickpeas, tofu, and tempeh. Miscellaneous foods, right? Approximately 5 to 20% of the diet may include fruit, seeds, nuts, and miso soup. So that's what he suggested. I find to be kind of interesting. Some of the stuff is really strange. I'd have to look into it. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to find out why he didn't advise tropical fruits. I can understand why he didn't want you eating hot foods because he was trying to push a yin and a yang, and he was like, your food should be balanced, hot and not hot. That makes a lot of sense. A lot of people getting ulcers and stuff eating too much hot stuff. So this is good information. It's good something to see because it takes you back to how people was thinking back in the 50s, and you know what I'm saying? Back in the 50s before we really upgraded, our concepts, right? So this takes you back to the concepts back in the 50s, which is very interesting. You know what I'm saying? Here's a quote from him. If you are eating well and your condition is pure and clean, life itself becomes like the dreams or visions that you have when sleeping. Interesting. So I thought this was historically really informative and good for us to know. I really did. I think this is very interesting. Very interested person to be able to be on that level way back then. Peace begins in the kitchens and pantries, gardens and backyards where our food is grown and prepared. The energies of nature and the infinite universe are absorbed through the foods we eat and are transmuted into our thoughts and actions. So yeah, he was on some heavy stuff. He was heavy for back then. That was a lot of good information for back then. I got to give it to him. You know what I'm saying? He was on something way back then. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what? I should have put alkaline in this list. I got to go back and fix this and put alkaline. I knew I was forgetting something. I got to put alkaline. So this is what they advise: 30% vegetables, 30% greens, 15% beans, 5% seaweed, and 20% grains. That looks good though. That does look healthy. Ain't gonna fool you. It's got all the colors and everything. So rest in peace to the brother. You know what I'm saying? He put down a good legacy for us and stuff. That way back then, trying to, help people eat better. I'm surely gonna order his book and check it out. I really need to build up a book collection, plant-based book collection. If y'all want to check it out, the Book of Macrobiotics, The Universal Way of Health and Happiness by Michio Kushi. So look, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I found it to be interesting. I just wanted to share it with you. I thought it was real heavy. I'm not gonna tell you no lie. Even though it had things that I didn't agree with, I don't really mind that because he was doing this way back, years ago, which is very interesting. You know what I'm saying? To be on that level that many years ago is real interesting. You know what I'm saying? Real interesting. So listen, make sure you all support the channel. Right? Hit the Cash App, PayPal, right? And make sure you eat right, eat to live. Don't live to eat. And always stay positive. All right? All right. Victory and vegan.